that we think is important for you to receive. So I'm BJ Kuntz. I'm the Assistant Executive Director here at the office, and kind of put together this fall workshop for you today. And I will be one of several presenters over the course of the day. We hope to kind of get you in and out in a reasonable time frame, but just a little bit of kind of format for today, so you're aware. Here in just a couple of minutes, I will put a sign in link in the chat, so you can sign in, just like if you're at a workshop and you kind of walked in the door and you'd sign yourself in. So we'll do that at the start. And then at the end, there's sort of an exit activity for you to do that will actually give you credit for attending this fall workshop. So we'll have sort of something at the start and something at the end for you to get through that. During the course of fall workshop, if you have a question that you would like to have asked, if you have a question you would like to ask, you can put it in the chat. And I also know that from time to time, our presenters will pause and ask if there's any questions. So if you have a question that is specific to a presentation, you'll most likely have an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask the question. But you also can throw things in the chat, and from time to time, we will pause and get those answered as well. Just also a reminder, most of you guys are pretty good at Zoom by now, but just make sure you're muting yourself when you are not speaking. We love to see your faces, so as much as possible, please show us your pretty face so we can see who it is that we're talking to from time to time. So that would be really great. Without anything else, I think I'm going to hand this over to the boss, Mr. Hoffman, and he's going to get us started today on a welcome.
Thanks, BJ, and thank you for everybody that's going to be there. Casey's going to be running this. We're in different parts of the world right now. So first of all, this slide, this is something that we brought forward as a staff. And, as we've been navigating these challenges with COVID, which seem to continue to go on and on, as a state, it was really exciting to see us all come together, which is essentially a human survival instinct. And by doing that, it made us all have a chance to get through. And I know some of you are new and we're in different positions through that. And we've lost some people from the statewide team, but as a core, we've continued to stay together to push through. And that has allowed us as a collective voice in education-based athletic and activities to push for some change in the guidance that we have a few more options this year than what we've had in the past. The key to all this and what we're really focusing on out of the office is how do we look past the survival mode that we are in, and how do we keep this thing together, this cohesiveness and kind of all for one mentality that we've developed as a survival instinct into a long-term productive solution to continue to enhance what we provide our kids every single day in our communities. With that, it's hard to see everybody in the room with sharing a screen on that, throughout as we've made this six-town tour. Today I do know that we have Herb in the Zoom room out of District 8 in Spokane. So thanks, Herb, for jumping back in. I did not see any of our board members. Most of them, we had all of them in person, our eligibility coordinators and Wasa mentors. So it's really important that people understand that when we're talking about who's the team, it goes beyond the people in the office in Renton. It goes beyond the people who are working and delivering in the schools, that it's an expansive group that make this thing happen. Also with us, and BJ, I don't think we have any of our sponsors presenting today. Is that correct? Okay.
Alex from Vidswap is going to join us today.
I am here, Mick.
Okay, great, Alex. So Alex is one of our new sponsors from Vidswaps, and you're going to hear some information from him here shortly. It's really important that people understand that as we're bringing sponsors on, what we're doing is trying to find folks that add value to the membership, not just bring in monetary resources. Because honestly, for the most part, a lot of that, it's a cumulative effect. So individual sponsors are critical for us to be able to enhance what you're doing. And so, Alex, at this point, actually, I'll turn it over in this format to you to introduce yourself and what Vidswap is and why we have this partnership.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can get started. So do you want me to, I'll pull up my screen here. Or we can do that. That's fine too. So appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's time. I'll make this really quick, really sweet. So usually when I'm in the room, I'm going to ask everybody, how many of you are on Huddle? And I'm guessing every single one of you is on Huddle, right? That's kind of the standard. Everybody's on Huddle. Everybody's used to doing that because that's what everybody's doing. And so what that means is that all of you are feeling really frustrated. At least most of you are. And you're feeling frustrated because you feel like the cost of Huddle continues to skyrocket out of control. And you don't really know why. And you feel frustrated because you feel like Huddle doesn't care about you. And you're also frustrated because you feel like you just don't have a choice and you don't know what to do. And so we're here to save you. We're here to help everybody. And so what I want you guys to imagine, if you kind of close your eyes real quick, just imagine that across the state of Washington, very soon here, every one of your coaches is going to be able to walk into any venue and every game is going to be automatically recorded by a Pixelot camera. And then every game is going to be automatically streamed to the NFHS network. And then every game is going to be automatically broken down and statted in Vidswap. And what that means is nobody has to do a thing, right? So how amazing is that, right? The fact that you get all that, because our mission is to give your coaches back their time, right? Now, as Mick said, my name is Alex, and I'm actually the founder. So I started this company 15 years ago. And so what I want you to understand, as you see on the screen here, is we've been doing this a long time. So we've been around for 15 years. And the best part of the whole story is I actually started this company here in Washington. So I was the quarterback for the Spokane Shock in 2006. That's the background that I've got. This is Spokane Arena. And when I was in Spokane, that's when I started this company. And then I was an offensive coordinator for 15 years at the high school level. And now 2 years ago, we were acquired by Pixelot. So we are a division of Pixelot. Okay. And so now I'm the VP of Analytics for Pixelot. Right. So what I want you to do right now, everybody do me a quick favor. It'll take 10 seconds. You see on the screen here, there's a QR code. So take your phones out, swipe to the camera, point it at there, just like you're looking at a menu, right, that we're all used to doing during COVID. Go ahead and take 10 seconds, fill your name, fill your email in, put your phone number in so that we can help you get started. Because the other piece to this is, for those of you that don't know, the NFHS will give you 2 free cameras. So if you don't have a Pixelot camera yet, I'll help you get connected so you can get those 2 cameras put in for free, and then we can get you on Vidswap, get you moving. But other than that, I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak in front of you.
Thank you, Alex. So again, we understand Huddle, the product. A lot of people work with it. One of our goals is to bring other strong options to the membership. And we were really excited as we learned more about Vidswap. And also for us, it aligns with technology a lot of you are already using with the Pixelot and the NFHS network. So Alex, thanks for being here. Alex flew back and forth from Minnesota twice. And like I said, made it into the room in all 6 events. So he's fully committed. It was exciting to hear how many schools were already utilizing him and then watching some of those come in and switch. So Alex, again, thank you for your time and for sharing the information. The other piece is we want to make sure that what we did out in the field is we had people stand up for a number of years that they worked. For folks who may be unaware, this year we've identified, we know there's more than this most likely, but identified 79 new athletic directors. So the Wasa mentoring program and the mentoring within your WI districts and leagues is never going to be more important than it's going to be this year. Not only are we, it was a great question came up, is like, what's Huddle, right? So we make so many assumptions that people already know these things. And that's the value of mentoring. And what we did is we asked the Wiley veterans, the 11+ year folks, in 10 seconds or less, bounce up and give a piece of advice. And what we heard were consistent themes in all 6 parts of the state. One, you got to take care of yourself because you're going to give so much of yourself. You got to stay healthy to be effective. Number 2, ask for help. There's no question that's a bad question. You may find some people who don't have the time for whatever reason or don't want to give the time, but there's going to be lots of other people. The people who make it in this profession and that continue a long term are givers of themselves to each other. So we do this together. And so, and the other piece is, don't beat yourself up and think you need to know it all. So I love that question, like, what is huddle? For me, that's a good reset to make sure we understand that we're serving from, not just the veterans that have specific needs, but we're getting everybody up to speed. So those of you involved in the Wasa mentoring program, thank you. Those of you that do it unofficially, thank you. Okay, we'll talk more about that in my breakout. The other piece is when we talk about the long term, like how do we get this going and how do we maintain us working together, is people need to understand, like, who is the WI? I know that we've used the line before, we are the WI, in the past, and taking a look at that when I was out in the district at the time, like, we are, what is that? Well, here's who our executive board is. So we have 13 voting members that districts send to us. We broke down the demographics of that group by positions. So first of all, 11 of the 13 voting members on our board are ADs, 8 of which are in buildings, 3 are at the district level. 4 of them double dip and coach. So 4 of them are current active coaches. We have 2 principals, one both at the middle school and the high school level. We have a superintendent. He happens to be our board president, Miles Caples out at Intiat. We have a district director, Pat McCarthy. We have 3 private schools that are voting members, and we have 1 Yellowstone Ranger. And so we have a very wide and diverse group of people in a variety of positions, not just geographically, but the roles that they play in their day-to-day professions, that are sitting at the table, going out, hearing from all of our membership, and then coming to the table to make decisions. The other piece is, for those of you that are newer to this, that our rules are actually made through rep assembly for the most part. Almost all rules in our handbook are brought forward by the membership and voted on the membership. And those are people from your district that you are also selecting. So for me, it's a struggle at times to try to understand where we still have pockets of distrust, because even with this makeup on our board and with the rep assembly process, we meet on a regular basis or solicit feedback from our district directors, which all of you hire to represent you, and then all our affiliate groups, from school directors to superintendents to the Wasa with the athletic directors, member schools and communities. So our ultimate goal through all this is to earn your trust. So when we talk about who's the WI, that's who the WI is. In addition, we have people that work in Renton like myself. So, this is my 3rd year starting, and my job is to support our staff and make sure we hear and try to meet the needs of our membership. At this time, if we can just kind of popcorn, maybe I'll call on individuals to do a quick overview of who you are. They can see your name, but let them know what you do. So BJ, you want to start with that, please?
You bet. I'm BJ Kuntz, one of the assistants here at the office, and I oversee soccer, softball, and bowling. I also work in our coaches education department and student eligibility. And I also do quite a bit of work with our membership. So welcome and thanks.
Thank you. Justin.
Justin Kesterson, also 3rd year on staff. As BJ said, 1/3 of the eligibility team. I oversee cross country, wrestling, track and field. I also do ejections, violations, and all things COVID at the moment.
Perfect. Casey, you on here? Trying to scroll through.
Yeah, I'm Casey Johnson, 6th year as information director, oversee communications, media relations, and state tournament programs.
Perfect. Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron Ritzesender. I've been with the WIAA for 15 years, facility and production coordinator. So I take care of a lot of our facility operations, and I run a lot of our student programs and our continuing education. I help out BJ with continuing education hours. Thanks for having me.
Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Adsen, one of the assistant directors. I currently oversee volleyball, cheerleading, gymnastics, dance drill, baseball, interstate and international sanction. Work directly with the handbook and work with Andy Barnes primarily on out of season and practice regulations. Unlike the others who just went before me and told you how many years they've been with the association, I'm going to tell you that I started in 1987, so you can figure that out. But that was also the same year that Mick Hoffman and BJ Kuntz graduated from high school.
Thank you, Cindy. Andy Knapp, top that one.
Not even going to try. Andy Knapp, Director of Marketing. This is my 14th year on staff, so I'm still a baby compared to Cindy. In addition to marketing, I handle a lot of our technology initiatives. Our social media, I work with Casey and Sam Brown to manage our student leadership committee. And then I also help with our corporate sponsorship effort on the fulfillment side. Thanks.
Thank you. Andy Barnes, are you on here?
I'm here. Good morning and welcome. Andy Barnes. I'm in my 16th year. I'm one of the assistant directors at the office. Oversee the sports of swimming and diving, golf, tennis, basketball, and football. I work with our allocations, classifications, and as Cindy mentioned, work with out of season. I also work with Leah Francis, our CFO, on some of the business operations. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And Sam Brown. All right, Sam Brown threw it in the chat. She works with eligibility and many other things. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need something. So she does a lot with our coaches' education. And Leah wasn't available today, correct? So she's not on there. Is Jorge with us? Okay, so those of you who work with Brent from Playfly OMS, Jorge is now in our office. So that way, hopefully you have a better understanding of who you're talking to when you pick up the phone or shoot an email our way. All right, Case, let's jump to the next screen, please. All right, so as a staff, we've really worked hard on trying to identify, we're a governance agency. Our job is to implement and enforce the rules made by the board and the membership. But in addition, we really want to make sure that we are providing service. And so that service and how we provide the governance, in addition to what else can we do besides governance. As part of that, we want to make sure we are fully accountable to our membership. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you get to just call and yell at us? Well, you can. I don't know how it's going to work necessarily for you. But what it means is that we will make mistakes at times. And we want to make sure if we're missing the mark that you let us know. With that, an example that came up in this last year, we had an amendment passed. We made an assumption on the intent with it from the authors. It was written by membership. We put it out into the rules, into the handbook. The authors were taken back. That was not, our assumption was not what they thought. So we went back, rewrote it to what they were intended. We sent it out to the membership. The membership said, hey, wait a minute, that's not what we thought we were voting on. We went back to the authors. We said, hey, this is what we're hearing from the membership. What are you hearing? And they said, let's go back to the original assumption, right? So in that case, we could have eliminated a lot of confusion by us simply verifying our assumption at the start. It was an oversight. There's no ill intent. What I don't want to have happen is that people think that the people you just met that introduced themselves are sitting in Renton trying to find ways to do something to our member schools or have our own agenda. That's not it at all. No different than you're not trying to do anything to your coaches, your kids, or other people in your league. So when we make mistakes, give us a chance to fix it. Don't assume, right? Give us a chance to explain, because in that case, we did make a mistake. We need to go back and fix it. Even though what we put out was where we ended up, how we went about it, we need to be accountable for that. So we'll own that. The other piece is you'll never hear more passion. You hear Cindy's sense of humor and all that. This is her quote, as just like all of you are grinding through COVID. We lived this thing for 16 months. And that was her quote last year. So sorry, Cindy, I tipped your hand a little bit for those people struggling with the math that were English teachers. But when people show up and love what they do 35 years into it, that's a pretty good place to be working and a pretty good opportunity to serve. The other piece is we want to be inclusive, and that's why we share, here's who's on that board and here's who's doing all those things. In addition, we're going to continue to grow, in our guidance, we are given the authority to do this by our state legislators. And with that, part of that verbiage is we take care of all kids. So we're not going to get caught up in political debates. We're not going to get caught up in personal politics. We're going to serve all kids. Even at times, if that means we have to go into rooms that people are very, very opposed because of that part of the state, that individual person, that group, we serve all kids. And so we're going to continue to grow opportunities for all kids. So any kids that come into our school. The other thing for those of you that maybe have been doing this for a while, aren't even aware of, but especially new, we are already a very inclusive membership in the fact that not all states allow public and private. Like a lot of the private schools are their own entities in different parts of the country. A lot of schools don't serve, state associations don't serve memberships. We have almost 400 plus middle schools that we serve. In addition, a lot of state associations don't work with activities, and they're solely high school athletics. And so, not only that, now we have a lot of work to do to hit a lot of our demographics throughout our state, and we have started that work, and we're going to continue that work, and some of that's listed here on the screen for you. The other piece is we're really going to work to be innovative, and at times that's going to create chaos, a lot of work, and when those kinds of things are happening, we need to hear from it. It's also going to involve membership input, and so that's why we solicit those kinds of things. So for example, those of you on this Zoom paying attention, we really appreciate it. For those people just checking boxes, have their screens off, maybe are listening, aren't listening, hey, at that point, we can't help you, right? And so as long as people are helping themselves and willing to jump in with us, we are 100% committed to trying to find innovative ways. We're not just gonna roll out the, dust off last year's playbook and roll it out the same way. We want to hear from our membership. We want membership engaged, not just when it's a personal issue, but throughout the whole process. So, those are things we're committed. That's how we did our ball contract right now. We have 2 official balls in the state. We have Baden for most sports, and we have football for with Wilson, as well as golf and tennis. That was something that most states do not do. And we did that because we heard loud and clear from our membership, our coach associations on things they wanted. We were willing to go in and negotiate with our partners to do that. And we also, at the same time, made sure that our WI districts were taken care of, that the balls, you're going to get those, you're not going to pay for those anymore for your events. And so as a state association, we actually took less revenue from these arrangements to make sure our coach associations, our AD association, and our districts were taken care of. Those are the kinds of things we want to do. That's why the Vidswap, right? If you want to give them a shot, we'd really appreciate it, because we think it's going to simplify your life if you're a Pixelot NFHS school. So again, trying to align ways to make things better for our schools creates innovation. We need to know what's going on and what's working and what's not. Membership services, you're going to hear about that at the end of the day, and also in some of our breakouts in our tech project. Those are all ways that we're trying to find ways to better serve our schools. Okay, Casey, thank you. And again, the other piece that we need to make sure that people hear loud and clear is that we are different than club sports. We are going to take care of our elite athletes, right? Club sports like to pick those kids. They charge a ton of money. There's a lot of barriers. It's not that those are bad. They serve a segment of our population, but that's not who we are, right? We include those kids, but at the same time, we're trying to find a way to give all kids an opportunity to do something. And we heard last year how important that is when we weren't able to do it. I mean, you think about this time last year, we weren't even doing these because we didn't even know if we were going to play. A lot of ADs were losing their jobs if they weren't tied to certificated positions, or you're given a million other duties. I mean, we're really excited to be at this point, even though we're facing this Delta variant. I read yesterday, we're doing a ton of research. California is seeing a plateau of cases, right? That to us is a sign that maybe something's going on, that we're going to see this downward, that we're going to get our arms around that. We're not seeing the plateau in Washington yet, but there's things going into place that hopefully will help with that. So once we get that right, then we got a chance to run with it like we did through the spring and summer. At the same time, as part of being inclusive, we don't want to take seats away from people. We know a lot of people have worked really, really hard to get to a point where you have influence and an ability to make positive things happen in your part of the state. We're looking to add seats to the table, right? It's important that we get all perspectives. If we're going to serve all people, we got to hear all perspectives. So that's what we're trying to do as a state. And again, the accountability, if you don't feel like we're walking our talk, right, call us out. But I'll tell you at the same time, we're going to share with you, right, our what and our why, not in a defensive way, but as communication. So, and we get the opportunity. We know some of you are more bold than others. We're okay with that because it gives us a chance to, one, understand needs that aren't being met, and number two, to explain and educate what we're actually doing. Sometimes, you know, we miss the mark. Despite how hard Casey works on good communication out of our office, sometimes we don't give them the information to get it out. So again, those things are going to continue to go. At the end of the day, our goal is to earn your trust. We don't want you to give us your trust. We're going to earn it, right, through our actions and what we do. And that's why, you know, we're thankful for those of you that made the time to get on Zoom. We're hoping to be able to do more of this in person. For those of you who are veterans, check in with the people who had the ability to be in person, because we changed the format dramatically. I mean, that was an innovation, and the feedback we got was it was a lot more beneficial to our membership. So we're going to try to do that, replicate that as best we can on Zoom. We do appreciate you taking the time on a Friday morning with the other challenges you had that prevented other attendance. And again, if you ever feel like you can't trust us, we want to know why, because we need to fix that. All right, back to this one. Yeah, and so again, what we really want is we want to work together. We're not going to do things to you. We don't want to have to come up and pick up the pieces behind you. So get out front, hit our emails, hit our texts, hit our phone numbers. You know, we are here to serve. We'll govern, but we're also here to serve. And we really do appreciate, and we love coming to work every day, getting the chance to do it. So thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Great, thanks, Mick. Hey, I'm going to put in the chat one more time a link for you to sign in. We have about 80 of you that have signed in, and I see 100 plus on the Zoom call. So I just want to make sure you do sign in. So I'm putting the link in the chat one more time, just to make sure if you haven't done that, please take a minute to do that. Okay, thank you, Mick, for our welcome. I'm going to pass it now to Cindy, and she's going to do a presentation.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can share my screen here too. I will let all of you know that I am the technology challenged one of this group. BJ, I am not seeing it.
Maybe JK can pop across the hall and help you real quick. He's on his way.
Here we come. Well, my door's locked.
While Cindy's working on that, and before she jumps into it, I'll remind everybody that all of the presentations and documents are posted in the My Conference app, so you should have access to them. And as Cindy gets set up here, there will be some that I present, and I'll talk about them specifically, that are not posted right now, but can be posted and can be sent out to you. But again, everything that we have in this presentation will be in the My Conference app.
It have to be. This has to be connected over. Well, it is, but let's see. Keep talking, Andy. We're still figuring this out.
Andy, does it make sense for you to go next? And then
yeah,
Cindy
I can jump into mine. And Cindy and we do have some crossover, so we'll I'll mention some of the things that she's going to be presenting, but I'll go ahead and kick it off here. Let's see. Is that working? Everybody see allocations?
Yes.
Perfect.
You can see it.
Okay. So for many of you that are on here, you know how we do our allocation process. For those of you that are new, I'm just going to talk about our allocation process for state tournaments and how we get there. We would normally be in the second year of our allocation process at this time. Because we didn't have state tournaments last year, we didn't have allocations. We didn't want to shift the allocation cycle 1 year to accommodate for that and get it out of alignment with our classification cycle. So we decided to do a single year allocation for this year's state tournaments. It's a little bit different. Obviously, we have not done this before, but we will continue our normal process as we go through this. As far as counting goes, we do that by season. So obviously we will start with the fall sports and do our counting. The district directors will reach out to either you individually as an athletic director or to your league president to start counting for state allocations. So again, this year will be a single year. And then this time next year, we will do the process again, which will get us back on our normal 2-year cycle. So we will have allocations approved for the 2022-24 cycle after this year. The executive board has pre-approved the 1A through 4A team sports. We still have to go through our normal process of counting to make sure that we have everybody counted for, but we have a pretty good idea of the sports that are offered by each school, so we can kind of get an advanced idea of what those allocations are going to look like. I have them. I have not posted them on our website where we normally will post allocations because I don't want people to think that they're final as of now, but if you would like to see them, I can share them with you, talk about what this is going to look like. But again, they're kind of pre-approved on first reading. We still have to go through the counts to verify everything. For the fall process of counting, we utilize a 3-week window to count for sports in all sports except for cross country. We utilize a 5-week window, and we verify runners that have run in a meet through athletic.net. So the WIAA Executive Board will approve allocations at their September 26th meeting. I will post them either that night or the next morning, so you know exactly what allocations will look like. And then 2 weeks later, we will do an email vote with the board to approve the cross-country allocations. In the winter and in the spring, it is a 2-week window. So it's a little bit quicker, but the process is the same. For those of you that participate in golf and tennis in the fall and during the alternate season, please don't promise any state tournament allocations. We don't know those. We have to wait until the spring season, which is the true season for golf and tennis, to verify those allocations. So I can try to give you an advanced idea of what that might look like, but we don't know officially until the spring what those allocations are going to look like. This process is all outlined. People are seeing that. Oh, okay. Hang on one second. I'm having some tech issues here. Let's see. Let's stop sharing and then share. Trying to figure out my screen here with this share. Sorry about this.
Andy, you might be able to go up to the top there, and that middle one, it says to switch the view. There you go.
Got it. Okay. So this, apologize for the delay there. This process is all outlined in the handbook. It is not a process that I try to keep secret or that we want to keep from people. I will walk through this process, how we get our counts, how we get our numbers. I'll do it with athletic directors. I'll do it with coaches. We want to make sure that everybody understands how we do allocations counting. Many of the districts utilize the same process for their district tournaments, as well as the leagues utilizing that for their league tournaments. So we want to make sure that we get this out to everybody. The number of, oh, now it's not switching. There we go. So obviously we have a 2-week window, a 3-week window, or a 5-week window, as I mentioned, depending on which season it is. We will pre-approve the 1A through team sports in advance of each one of those seasons. So again, I can get those for you if prior to the actual approval of them getting out. For the individual sports, these are the numbers that are needed in order to be counted for team allocations. As you can see there, the number for cross country, for example, is 5. So you need to have 5 runners in order to be counted for allocation purposes. So if you're getting toward the end of that 3-week counting, or excuse me, 5-week counting in the fall, and you've got 4 runners, do whatever you can to get that 5th runner. Or in swimming, if you've got 3, make sure you get that 4th so you can be counted for allocation purposes. So if you've got questions on the process, I can walk you through that. I will be sending information out to the district directors today. They've probably already reached out to you or will be reaching out to you soon for those counts to get information out. So I am going to stop and switch over to talk about some of our state tournaments and what our projected state tournaments are going to look like for this fall. So again, this is not final. We still have to go through our allocation counting to make sure that we verify these projected state tournaments. With our equitable entry system, we now have the ability for 20 entry and 12 entry state tournaments, where traditionally we had 16 and or 8. So we do have some projected changes with our state tournaments based on the number of schools that are offering sports in that classification. Starting with football, we know that there is enough 3A schools to generate a 20 entry tournament, but the executive board, in working with the Football Coaches Association and many of you athletic directors, a 20 entry football bracket doesn't really work out with the number of weeks that we have. And so the executive board approved last year that for 3A football, although they generate a 20 entry bracket, that bracket will stay at a 16 entry. The number of schools listed there, these are projected, these are not final, but you can see in the 1A there, the range of schools needed for a 16 entry is 50 to 68. And the projected right now is we are right on the number at 50. So there's a big difference, and it's very vital to make sure we get everybody counted, because if that drops down one number, you're going from a 16 entry tournament down to a 12 entry. So we got to make sure that we get everybody counted. 2B is projected there as a 12 entry, and 1B is projected as an 8 entry. So again, we will verify these numbers as we go through the allocation process. As soon as everything is finalized by the executive board, we will then post it on the website, but I have not done that because it's not final at this point. Moving down to soccer, 4A projected as a 16 entry. For 3A, we have that projected as a 20 entry tournament. And as you know, our soccer tournament ends with a Final Four. So working backwards on a 20 entry, we have now one extra game that has to be played. And so what does that look like within the postseason schedule? We did not want to impact the district tournaments with the 20 entry. So the format we came up with is after the district tournament is completed, and with all team sports this year, they're going to be seeded by our seeding committees. So as soon as the district championships are completed, they will seed the 20 teams in 3A soccer. Teams seeded 13 through 20 will play a midweek game either on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then that next weekend, it will be a regionalized format for 3A, where schools will come to 4 sites, 4 teams, and 1 team will come out of that, each region, to qualify for the Final Four. So a little bit different format for 3A girls soccer this year, but we're still working on identifying what our potential regionalized sites would be for that, for girls soccer. In 2A, projected at 16 entry as well as 1A, and then in 1B, 2B, both boys and girls projected at a 12 entry bracket for soccer. Moving down to slow pitch, we have projections there. We know we might be having some more schools adding slow pitch. We just implemented slow pitch a few years back, and so we're excited to keep adding schools offering slow pitch, projected at 2 8-entry brackets, but hopefully we'll get more and increase those brackets as we move along. Down to volleyball, 4A volleyball is projected as a 16-entry bracket. For 3A volleyball, that's projected as a 20. And with all of these 20 entry and the 12 entry brackets, the philosophy is that the board has approved is that the 20 entry and the 12 entry will be single elimination play-in games that lead into either a 16 entry or a 8-entry bracket. So specifically for 3A volleyball, the teams that are seeded 13 through 20, those games will be played where the final site is actually being played. So for example, if the 3A volleyball tournament is in Yakima, teams seeded 13 through 20 will play on Thursday prior to the round of 16 being played. It's single elimination games. Loser is out. Winner moves into the modified double tournament for volleyball. With that, at the Wasa conference, we worked with many of the ADs to come up with a consensus on what would be a reasonable time for those single elimination games to be played. And the consensus was that those games would be played at 5 o'clock to allow for schools to travel over the day of, play that game. If they were the loser of that contest, they would have the ability to travel home. We know that with budgets, with COVID and 1660, the impacts that it's had on your ASB budgets, we will do everything we can to minimize travel, minimize hotel stays for schools. This new equitable entry system is new for us. So having 20 entry and 12 entry tournaments presents challenges and unique setups with our state tournaments. We can't guarantee that you won't have to stay the night depending on what time those game times are, but we'll do everything we can scheduling wise to minimize the amount of overnight stays that you'll have as a school. In the 2A projected as 16 entry, 1A 16 entry there, 2B is projected at 16, and then the 1B volleyball right now, again, we have to verify these numbers, projected as a 20 entry tournament. Still working girls swim and dive on what those allocation numbers will look like specifically in the 3A as well as cross country. So again, we will verify this and the executive board will approve our allocations at their September 26th meeting, and then we will update this document and then post it on our website. Just a quick run through of what those brackets look like for these 20 entry tournaments. You see here on the left-hand side, they are a single elimination seeded by our seeding committees that will lead into our either single elimination games, brackets, depending on the sport, or a modified double. This is an example of a 12 entry bracket. This is the football bracket. As you can see here, the top 4 teams would have a bye, and then the teams seated over here on the left would be playing into that bracket. And then down at the bottom here, this is an example of our volleyball bracket with the play-in games, which will be Thursday, leading into the modified double elimination bracket here. So that is what our projections look like for tournaments. Obviously, we will do this with our winter sports and our spring sports as well. But the philosophy with state tournaments this year is we're trying to have as many of our traditional sites for state tournaments. We are trying to work with our facilities on doing everything we can to cut down costs, not only for the association, but for member schools, to make sure that we are utilizing the best facilities around our state. We want to be able to provide the best opportunities, whether it's at large venues, small venues. So we'll continually work with our sites to make sure that we're providing the best opportunities for our kids. Going to move into our classification process where we are at right now. We are in the middle of our classification process, which is a 4-year cycle. We had 40+ schools appeal their classification at the beginning of this cycle. We have reached out to each one of them to fill out a survey to gather as much data as we can through this classification process. Free and reduced lunch counts were used to classify our schools, and this was really our biggest significant change on how we count our schools and classify schools. We're going to ask those that went through the process to fill out forms again starting in October to gather as much data through the process. We know last year was out of whack with COVID and numbers were down for participation, but we still want to be able to kind of glean out of this, is the way that we count and classify our schools the best it can be. We're not suggesting that a school's granted appeal will be rescinded by the executive board, but we do want them to go through that process again. Any schools that did not appeal their classification at the beginning of this 4-year cycle will not be able to jump in midstream and ask for an appeal. We don't want to have changes in the middle of our cycle. They will have to wait till the next 4-year cycle in 2024. The classification committee is continually looking at the process. Right now, the executive board approves classifications at their January meeting, and we know that is a short timeline to finalize classifications, finalize who your leagues are, finalize what your schedules are going to be for that upcoming fall. So we're looking at if we can get that approval done prior in the year. We're working with OSPI to see how quickly we can get numbers of schools and what the enrollment counts are. So the classification committee is continually working on improving that process as we move forward. I'm going to touch base on foundation games. Schools now have the ability to offer or have foundation games throughout the year. You can have them in baseball, basketball, soccer, softball, and volleyball. You can sign up for foundation games in your school's My WIAA account. There is a fee for these games. It is by sport and by classification, and that can also be found. There's a document posted there that shows what the fee is for these. The fee for the game is non-refundable if for whatever reason you're not able to play the game. So whether it's from COVID or you just decide to cancel the game, that fee is not refunded. It stays in the association's foundation. So if you are planning to do that, please make sure you do have that ability. For basketball specifically, if you want to play a foundation game, you can do that in addition to an international game that you can play once every 3 years. So that is on top of that contest if you're looking to do it in basketball. I'm going to move over to where we're at with our governance committee. This group has been meeting for 5+ years now. They've had a number of meetings to look at the governance of the association, anywhere from having conversations of, do we need to start the association all over, to no, the association is really good, we just need to make a few minor tweaks and everything in between. You can see the members of this committee, where they're at right now. This is their final report that they have given to the executive board. And again, this document is posted in the My Conference app, as well as on the handbook page on the WIAA website. In looking at all of the services that are provided throughout the association, this report does not have significant changes to the entire organization, but does have some significant changes to our East Side districts. Redistricting is a major component of what has been proposed here. Condensing down from 5 districts on the east side of the mountains down to 2 districts. WIAA districts 5 and 6 would be condensed. WIAA districts 7, 8, and 9 would be condensed down into 1 district. So in looking at the makeup of our districts, a lot of our West Side districts have 70+ schools in each one of the classifications. Access to state tournaments is very similar. Access to multi-classification leagues is very similar. And part of the reasons why the proposal came out from the east side is some of our districts are limited in the number of schools that are in each district, as well as the number of leagues and classifications represented. So this group looked at a number of different things, representatives to our executive board, representatives through rep assembly, and just kind of outlines and proposes some changes here. The board has approved this on first reading and will review it again at their September meeting. But the executive board does not make the final approval of this. It would actually be done through rep assembly. So in looking at timelines and if this were to pass, what does implementation look like? We're thinking that this will go to rep assembly this spring. And if it were to pass, it would then allow for implementation time to condense down those districts as proposed here. So lots of information in this document. This committee has done some outstanding work in looking at this. It's not an easy subject because condensing down some of our districts, we've had long-standing relationships. Each one of them has their own executive board. They have their own finances, their own district director. And looking what that looks like to condense that down, there's a lot of things that need to be considered. So appreciate everybody's work that's served on this committee. The last thing that I have is an update from the executive board, something that passed a couple of weeks ago. In working with our insurance providers, we know that schools have young kids that are part of your programs, whether they're in the football as their ball shaggers, bat boys, bat girls. From the association perspective, our insurance carriers have let us know that we really can't have kids that are less than high school age at the state tournament. Providing shagging balls, things like that. We are working with our insurance provider to come up with a waiver that schools can have families sign the risk and assume the risk of having young kids out there. We want to have them a part of your programs. We know how important they are. We know that coaches love to bring their kids out, community members to have them as ball shaggers, but from a liability perspective, we really can't have anybody younger than age high school, but we do want to provide a waiver if possible. So we will get information out to schools. We'll work with our 2 risk management pools to make sure they are aware of what's going on. But that was one update from our executive board. So I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. I can walk you through all of our projected state tournaments, allocations, where we're at with governance, anything. We're here to serve, and we'll do everything for you. I think I'm turning it over to Cindy now.
Okay, BJ, I was thinking since we're just about at an hour, do we maybe want to give them like a 5 or 10 minute break, and then I can get this all set up during that time?
Yeah, what we could do is go ahead and Andy Knapp, do you want to show we could do a sponsor video while you're getting that set up? You want to do that? Or is it because you want to share screen?
No, I'm going to be sharing screen. I just thought because when we did these workshops in person, we had everybody moving around. They've been sitting for an hour.
Right. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. It's 9:52. Let's do a 3 or 4 minute break. Get up and stretch your legs and use the restroom and get a cup of coffee if you like. We'll meet you back here in about 3 or 4 minutes. Thanks, Cindy.
If you are interested in or have an interest in proposing an amendment, I can certainly help you with that. It can appear to be a somewhat daunting process, which is really not that hard. It just takes some time to get it done. So amendments in by October 15th. They will be distributed the first week in November. Lots of time for discussion in leagues and districts prior to Winter Coalition in January. And then again, lots of time for discussion through leagues and districts prior to the vote, the end of April. So now we're going to talk about games committees. And this is something that I hope you really all dial into because it could be very critical this year. We did not have a whole lot of games that were played last year, but schools still have the opportunity to appeal an ejection based on judgment or to protest a game based on misinterpretation or misapplication of a rule. In both cases, if the school that is either appealing the ejection or protesting a game has at least 2 days prior to their next contest, then that appeal or protest comes directly to the WIAA office, and we will make a ruling on it here together. If there's less than 2 days prior to their next contest, then a games committee needs to make the ruling on that situation. So every league should designate a sports-specific games committee for all of the sports that you offer within the leagues. And I know in some cases I've heard, well, we have our league schedules are set up so there is always a minimum of 2 days before the next contest. Well, that's not true if we wind up getting games canceled due to smoke, or to some of the COVID cancellations, or when we get into the winter when we have snow that closes schools. So you need to be prepared for those situations, that unanticipated situations, and develop a games committee in each sport that's offered by your league. And it should be the people who are most knowledgeable in that sport. Because I can assure you that if you think it's challenging to try to find something in the WIAA handbook, try going through a National Federation basketball rule book. It is not an easy task. It's something that our staff works in all the time, and we can certainly help with that. So the games committee should be comprised of no less than 3 nor more than 5 people. And I would recommend that it be either 3 or 5. Because they have to make a decision. If you have an even number of people, it's possible that they will come to a stalemate. So uneven number. The most important part to remember is that games committee members may not have a conflict of interest with the teams involved with the appeal. So if I am an athletic director and I plan to appeal the ejection of my coach, I cannot be on the games committee. The athletic director of the school that we're playing in that contest cannot be on the games committee. And the official that ejected my coach cannot be on the games committee. During regular season contests, most of the people that are there, if not all, are affiliated with one team or the other. So you need to set up in your league a phone tree for phone conferencing to go through these appeals. Here are some potential people that can serve on it. It can be any athletic director, any coach, any official that's in your district. And I would, in your area, you all know who the top officials are in your area. And I would recommend that you reach out to that person and say, we would like to have you available to serve on our games committee if needed. You may not need them, but it's important to have them lined up in the event that you do. It's also important if you were planning to appeal the ejection of a player or coach, the only way it can be appealed is if you have school approved video of the situation. And it has to be viewed by the games committee at that time in order to make a decision. If there's a protest of a game, it can only be based on misapplication or misinterpretation of a rule. A video cannot be used, and the WIAA staff member that oversees that sport is the only one that can validate whether the rule has been misinterpreted or misapplied. So if you're at a district basketball game and there's a protest, your first call should be to our buddy Andy Barnes to have him determine if the rule has been misapplied or misinterpreted. The role, it's very critical. The decision of the games committee is final. Last year, there were 4 games committees that met. Last year, there were 4 games committees that did not follow the correct process or should not have even heard the situation or made an incorrect ruling. It didn't matter last year because there's no postseason. This year there's a postseason and it's going to matter. So everybody needs to follow the correct process in this because it cannot be changed once it's done. If you go into the bound for state general regulations, which are in my WIAA, games committees are listed and it very specifically lays out the role of the coach, the role of the official, the role of the event manager, step by step by step by step. That is available to you as a guide that you can use during the regular season. And I would recommend that you look at that, have it available, get your seating committees all lined up. I mean, your games committees. Sorry, I was looking ahead. Seating committee is the next thing I'm going to talk about. So we have been running the RPI for basketball for the past 4 years, and that determined first round matchups on the brackets for the state tournament for the most part. We had some criteria modification to try to eliminate teams from the same league playing each other in the first round single elimination games. This year, the RPI is going to run for all team sports, and it will be the same formula that we used the last couple of years for basketball, which is 40-40-20, knowing full well that formula does not work for football because there are not enough games, the number of games played. It just doesn't have the same effect. But there will be a seating committee for every one of the team sports. And Andy talked a little bit about that before. I want to talk about one more thing with the formula. If you play an out-of-state opponent, it will default to 500, meaning a 0.5 win, which also means you no longer have to track schedules and scores of those opponents through the season. The schedules that you submit through Arbiter will automatically feed into the RPI that will be posted on the WIAA website. And the scores that are reported by the officials through Arbiter will automatically feed in. I would recommend that either you or you designate someone in your office just to verify that the scores are correct. RPI is based on wins, and if the score somehow gets reversed, that will impact your RPI. So just validate that the score is correct. Every league has the ability to nominate an individual to serve on each one of the seating committees. There's one for every classification and for both genders in every sport that we're team sport that we're offering. So they will determine the matchup, the first round matchups. RPI will just be one tool that they utilize. They will also be looking at other rankings, going out to games, talking to people, whatever information they can gather throughout the season. The fall committees have already had their first meeting. They're scheduled to meet again here in about a month, most of them. They will start ranking teams midway through the season, and then we'll do the final ranking of teams on the Sunday prior to the state tournament. So if your league does not have a representative, we have been working directly with the league presidents on this to make sure that the league endorses the representatives. So please do not have a coach reach out to me directly, because I will not provide them with the application unless I have received notification from the league president that they are endorsed by the league. I will be sending these lists out to all the league presidents next week, saying this is who you have listed. Do you still want them? A lot of people have changed jobs in the last year, so they may not even be around. Quite a few of the committees have a number of vacancies, so we're hoping to get those filled soon. We will also be providing a pass for each one of the members of those committees, encouraging them to go out and watch games. They will be specific. It will say volleyball seating committee and that person's name, or football or soccer or slopage, whatever the sport is. And please allow them entrance into your contest for whatever sport is on that. So if it says volleyball, they should not be trying to get into a football game, but only into volleyball. They're there in a working capacity. Please let them in so that they can gather some additional input. The applications for winter and spring committees will be sent to the league presidents in mid-September, first part of October. So those will be coming later. BJ, that wraps it up for me. I was supposed to pass it to Barnes, but since he already went, I'm not sure if it's you or Justin going next.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Why don't we have Justin go ahead, and then after Justin, I think we will do a word from one of our sponsors. So Justin, it's all you.
All right, let me get my screen shared here. All right, are you seeing the presenter mode, or are you seeing the actual display?
You're good. We see the display. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, so Justin Kesterson again, third year on staff, oversee activities, ejections, part of the Dei Committee, which is what I'm going to talk about. So sponsored activities. So right now, Cindy oversees cheer, dance, and drill. I oversee forensics, music, and theater for the association, and now esports will be added into that. And we are beginning our first year of the trial period, and I'll cover that in just a second. But one thing we want to throw out to schools as we're working around the state is this potential of girls flag football. The Tacoma Public School District last year, along with the Franklin Pierce School District, partnered up with NFL Flag, the Seahawks, and Nike to offer girls flag football in a club capacity. And there's a strong potential that this could become one of our emerging sports and enter into the trial period if we have enough schools that get behind this. And it was a great opportunity for girls in those two school districts. And James Neal down there, the Tacoma District Athletic Director, did a great job in taking a leadership role in this and getting it implemented into his school district. What they did was they ran that against some of their winter sports. And so it went up against gymnastics and basketball for them. And we did a survey at the end of their season. And what we found was there was a lot of girls that were participating in flag football that either didn't participate in those sports during the winter season or weren't even participating in sports and other activities in their school. So it was reaching a group of girls that were not even involved in their schools up until that point. And we've seen this tremendous growth in Georgia and Florida running this as a sanctioned sport in those states, and the numbers continue to grow. And so the Seahawks have a lot of energy around this and are really excited about the potential of expanding this in the state of Washington. So if you have questions about girls flag football and getting that up and going, please reach out to myself, Andy Barnes, or Mick here in the office, and then we can put you in touch with James. And there's no set time of when you have to offer this at the moment. But like I said, right now, James and some of the other South Sound school districts will be looking at running this during the wintertime again this year to see if that changes, and while we're hopefully into a normal, mostly normal school year. So more information on that if you would like. The Performing Art Guideline information is down here just to make sure everybody's aware that the Performing Art Guidelines are in the K-12 document as well. We do anticipate those changing here either this week, maybe next week, maybe the week after. It's a DOH timeline, and so we know how those can go. And so those we are looking for some potential updates in there, and that is due to the fact that when the K-12 guidance came out 2 weeks ago, there were still a lot of restrictions placed on the arts in the schools, and so the theater group approached the DOH about less restriction in those and trying to explain the difference between curricular and extracurricular. And I believe that the DOH is finally is understanding that difference. And so that's where these changes are going to be coming from. What it actually means, they're still working through the actual guidance, but it does appear that there may be less restrictions on your art students when they perform outside of the actual school day. So just an overview of how the trial sport and activities work. This first year, especially as we're talking about esports, we need to have 20% of our schools that are committed to adding the activity or the sport at their school. And so based on the workshops that we held over the summer and the workshops that are upcoming, we've quickly approached that number if we haven't already exceeded. I haven't checked the numbers in the last couple of days, but we are rapidly approaching that 20% number. And then in year two, we need to see this 40% mark before it actually becomes a sanctioned sport or activity within the association. So once again, esports is in this. We could see flag football or other emerging sports potentially reach this, but we do have to have these numbers of schools that are committed to actually offering that sport or activity for it to enter into the trial period. So just a little bit about esports. Again, the registration workshops are next Monday and next Tuesday at 1 and 3:30 p.m. on both days. Those will be recorded in case you don't have somebody that can get out to those. And so you just need to reach out to me and we can get the recording sent to your school. But you should have received an email last Tuesday regarding esports. And so that fall registration period will start on September 7th. The games will begin being played on October 4th. We are considering a virtual culminating event for this fall season, just due to everything with COVID. And then we will be offering a spring season as well. So there will be 2 seasons of esports this year. And that spring registration will begin in January of 2022. And these 5 games down here at the bottom are the games that will be offered. The first 4 will be at the high school level. That last one will be a middle school only option. Going through those games, you'll see that there is an 8-week regular season of league play and a 4-week postseason for all of our titles. Rocket League basically just think soccer with cars. So you've got 3 kids on each team, and they're just playing a game of soccer, but they are vehicles trying to score goals. Dota 2 is essentially capture the flag, except you're trying to destroy the other team's base, and that consists of 5 kids on each team. I want to assure everybody that this is not a first-person shooter game, so we've stayed away from those titles. And so Dota 2 may appear by the sounds of it to fit that, but it is not a first-person shooter. Those of us that grew up through the late 80s, early 90s are well aware of Street Fighter, and so Street Fighter 5 is in this title. It's 1v1, as is FIFA. The one thing that you'll notice about FIFA is you have to be 16 plus to participate in it. And that is a publisher restriction that they put in place. So when FIFA is played at the interscholastic level, you have to be 16 plus. And that, again, is just something that EA Sports has in place. So it has nothing to do with the association putting that restriction in or CSL. Venture Valley, basically think of it as a SimCity type game. And so the kids will basically start up as a business owner, and there's a lot of financial literacy to this, and so it can be used as a curriculum piece in the classroom. And that's the one thing that we're really excited about with Venture Valley, is that it has this curriculum opportunity to really engage middle schoolers in esports and kind of give them that base level of understanding on how esports works. And so that's one of the broad things with esports that we're really excited about, is this curriculum piece that we see evolving into the high school level and getting in with CTE, STEAM, and STEM. And the opportunities that kids will have as career opportunities past high school. And so this is a multi-billion-dollar industry for those of you that are not aware of esports. So this continues to grow. There's a lot of jobs that are needed. And so we're not looking at the kids becoming professional gamers. We're looking at them becoming game designers, publishers, and broadcasters. One of the things that we've been asked about is the pricing of this. It's $60 per player per semester, but it will not exceed the $2,000 per school for the school year. So this fits the model of the 1Bs and the 4As at both ends. So if you're at a small school and you only have a couple of kids that are interested in it, you're only paying $60, $120, $180, depending on the number of your kids. But if you're at a large school and you've got over 60 to 70 kids that are engaged in your esports club, you're not paying this exorbitant amount of money and costing your school a lot of dollars. So it is fit within that nice little window. And so again, please, if you haven't registered, please register. And again, those will be next Monday and Tuesday. One of the fun things that I get to oversee are ejections. And so the ejection policies are in the 18 section of the handbook. And so one of the things we want to highlight is, again, ejection reports are required to be submitted to our office within 1 school business day following the competition. We get a lot of pushback sometimes on this because we understand that you are administrators, you are teachers. There's a lot of things on your plate. However, those of you that have worked with me know that I'm very black and white when it comes to our rules. This is what the rule states. If you do not like that rule is a 1 school business day, as Cindy said, we have the amendment process. An amendment can be submitted in and then it can be voted on. So it says 1 school business day. And again, I want to make sure that everybody understands that you do not have to have all of your information if you have an investigation that you're wanting to do. If you plan to appeal, but you need to look into it more, that's fine. You can detail that when you submit the ejection report, and we'll take note of it. And then we can work through that as we go along. But this acknowledges to the office that you are aware of the ejection. And sometimes I've been going around when we have been out on our fall workshops that some people say, well, I never knew that we had an ejection. You should have that communication with your coaches, whether it's a text, an email, or a phone call that night. They should be letting you know that there was an ejection that took place. All right. And so you shouldn't have to wait on point number 2, the officials report, right? A lot of times people want to say that they want to look at the officials report. Yet when they submit the information in, their recollection and their details of what took place are completely opposite from what the official said. So the statements never align. So please do not wait on the officials report to come in because there is no rule in the WIAA handbook that states that you have to receive the officials report. Violent conduct ejections are 20% of the number of allowable contests for that sport. So those tables are in the book if you want to look. So if you have a student athlete or a coach, which hopefully that doesn't happen, that gets ejected for violent conduct, those penalties are in the back of the book. Ejections for verbal abuse or abusive language. If we went around this entire room right now and we asked for a definition, what your definition of abusive language is, it's probably going to be different for all 100 plus people on this call. So we've recognized that, the ambiguity of it and the gray area that lives within this rule. So the 20% suspension that went along with the abusive language policy is no longer. It is going to be a standard 1-game ejection. However, staff does have the ability to further the suspension if the student or the coach has gone beyond a reasonable argument when they've been ejected. So once they've been ejected, they need to stay quiet. They need to walk off the field. If they're a coach, if they're a player, they need to go back to the bench. If they continue to argue and continue to verbally abuse the official and it gets written up into the game report, we do have the ability to further that suspension. However, we will not do so without contacting the school and working with you at the building level to give you the opportunity to address it at the school level before we would have to step in. These last 2 points are just specific from last year during COVID. In situations when kids were ejected for the 2nd time during the season, but it happened in the last game and how that carries over. So it would end the student athlete's season. It does not preclude them from playing in the next sports season in which they participate. It just means that they are done for, if it took place in the fall, they're done for the fall. However, their 1-game suspension, or if it was for violent conduct, that 20% suspension would carry over into the next sports season. Additionally, with ejections, this kind of goes along with what Cindy was talking about just recently in the Games Committee appeals. So ejections resulting from a misinterpretation or misapplication can be appealed, but it has to be without video evidence. So it is strictly on the rule itself that the rule was misapplied. Again, if you want to appeal that, you need to contact, it starts with me, and then I work with whoever our staff liaison is if it's during the regular season. If the Games Committee is involved, go directly to whoever the staff liaison is, because you'll be working with that person for that sport. If it is an ejection resulting from a judgment call, those must be appealed with video evidence. That's because we cannot take statements from individuals that are involved, because the statements, again, never align. And so the video has to be what we judge that off of, and it has to be able to speak for itself. When you do send in the video clips, we're just asking that you do send a full detailed video, that it's not just a 2-second clip, right? We can't tell what the story is when we only get a 2-second video, or the video is extremely grainy. Okay, so just make sure that the video is further far enough in length that we can tell what the story is. Sometimes we get a clip and it's basically the play ends and then it starts to show something and then it doesn't go all the way through. So we can't tell what the whole story is. All right, so we just need to make sure that all of that information is there for us. Otherwise, they will be upheld. If you do have a parent that just will not let the appeal process go, even though you're saying that you don't think that, that you should appeal it, go ahead and send it in. Just give me a phone call. Let me know that you're not in support of this. We will still review the video and work through it. But however, most of the time we will still uphold that ejection if there's no video evidence that shows that that it should be overturned. In the slides, so when you download these slides at the end of the day, you'll see within the ones that I've done that I've given you the view of what it looks like from your My WIAA account. Again, ejection reports can be done down in the quick links section. Violations, another area that I oversee. So violations will happen at some point during your career. I've submitted violation reports. I'm sure BJ has probably submitted a violation in her day as well. Doesn't matter how major or how minor the violation is, they need to be reported. If you missed a deadline, report it. If you played an ineligible player, report it. We're a self-governing association. We cannot self-govern if we don't hold ourselves and those around us accountable for what takes place. There's two kinds of violation reports. There's a self-report where you self-report for a violation that happened at your school. The second option is more of I call it a nuclear option, right? And that's when you report a suspected violation of another school. Professional courtesy would be that you pick up the phone and you call that other school and you say, hey, I believe that you have a violation. You work through that situation with that individual at that school, or you work through your league or your WIAA district. If you go onto the website and you fill this out, it will go to their superintendent, the school principal, it goes to the AD, it also goes to the league president and the WIAA district director. So there's a lot of people that are attached to this. And so if you don't give that heads up, right, it could cause for a lively debate at your next league meeting or your next district meeting when you get together for those. So those options are available. Again, the self-report is down in the quick links section of the website. The second one is under forms in the handbook and compliance section, and you'll find that along with the self-report, a secondary link for the self-report and ejection reports in the same place. Combines and co-ops, just want to try to help everybody understand the difference between the two. Again, full combines are when multiple schools play together in every sport that's offered. So the example I've been using is Lynn, Ritzville, Sprague, Washtuckna. Right, they used to have Colotus involved into it. And so Greg Whitmore, when he fills in the paperwork, he puts all of those schools together. They play every sport together and they are billed as one school. Partial combines are when you're playing a majority of your sports together. However, you still have a couple of sports that are played independently at each school. Those get billed out as separate schools, and all combines are done on a 4-year classification. So once you get an approval paperwork for a combine, it is good for the 4-year classification cycle, no matter when you've entered into that combine. If it's in the middle of the classification cycle, it only goes through that time period. And then you have to resubmit paperwork in the next classification cycle. Combines are typically used for when you have team sports. Individual sports are better aligned with a cooperative. That's when you're sharing those resources. However, those kids are participating and competing for their own individual school. I'll throw the wrinkle in that when you're doing this during your league season, if your league agrees, you can score points as one whole cooperative and you don't have to break them out by individual schools. You have that option, but when you get to the postseason, those kids have to compete and score for their individual school. They cannot be scored together, and they have to go through their classification qualifiers. So if you have a 1A school and a 3A school that are co-oping, the 1A kids go through the 1A qualifier, the 3A kids go through the 3A qualifier. The thing you want to make sure of in both of these situations, well, mostly in the cooperative, if you have this situation, you need to make sure that you have a coach that is going to be able to go to the postseason with one of those schools, right? So you don't want to have this cooperative and then take the 1A kids and leave them out hanging out to dry when they get to the postseason with nobody to coach them, right? So think those things through when you enter into those agreements. At any time, both of these agreements can be dissolved. It just takes a letter, an email, and notifying our office, because it does affect what Andy does on the allocation process. Co-op and combine forms can be submitted in the forms section, again, under membership. One of the other things that I oversee is our medical advisory committee. This update went in last year, but we're just making sure that schools are aware of it again before we head into the school year. 1711.5 is a new rule. It's referred to as the Bowie rule. This just ensures that athletic directors are aware of when students have been seen for a concussion or have been diagnosed with a concussion before they're able to step back out on the court or the field. So a student is seen for a concussion, they go through all the medical process, they get cleared, a medical professional signs off. Yes, your athletic trainers can do this if they have the proper certification. So athletic trainers need to be an LAT certified, which is a licensed athletic trainer. If they are simply just an ATC, they cannot sign off on this. So you need to make sure that you have the proper designation when the medical professional is signing off. This should then be brought into you as the building AD, and then you sign off. This just makes sure that the school is aware that a student has suffered a concussion or was seen for a suspected concussion before they come back in. So it's just a paper trail, right, for the liability side of things in case something does happen. Another update is the heat index policy. Just a reminder that when the heat index is at or above 70 degrees, you should have some sort of a rapid cooling method available at your event, contest, or at the practice for that day. Again, this is heat index. This is not the air temperature, so there is a difference. The school should be tracking the heat index daily and whenever your teams are practicing. So if your teams are going at different times, then you need to be tracking that information, whether you're the AD that's doing that or whether it's the athletic trainer that's doing that. When it gets to 85 degrees or above, this is when you need to track it. And don't overthink it. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet, date, time that the reading was taken, the temperature, the heat index temperature, and the teams that were practicing or competing at that time, and any modifications that you've made, right? So that's all the tracking piece is, and it's just going to be a running track of that during the year. And again, this is designed for outside activities, unless your gymnasium is not air conditioned. Then you would need to track them indoors as well. You can utilize the heat index calculator that's in the resources section of the information. All you do is you punch in your zip code and it gives you the heat index for your area. The only place that we've found that this doesn't work right now, and we're working on a solution, is Connell. It defaults to a little town in Germany, we found out. So we're working to get them squared away, but everybody else, it should work. The other additional thing with this, and this will go into the next slide as well, is there are plenty of apps out there that you can download onto your phone that'll track the heat index, and you can set up a ping alert to when it gets to a certain degree if you want to set it up that way. You can also do that with smoke, right? And so smoke is another thing that we want you to be aware of. There is no official WIAA policy around smoke, but however, if you have smoke in your area, we encourage you to make sure that you can use one of these two links that are on this slide. You can also, as I said, download an app that tracks the air quality index. Once it gets to 150 or above, typically you're shutting some things down or you're making changes to your events or your practices. I know that all of you have loved discussing things with your local Department of Health throughout the last year and a half, but this is one thing that you will have to go back to your DOH on, and they will be the ones that oversee the air pollution side of things and the smoke. So you will have to contact your local DOH if the air quality gets to that high level, and they'll be the ones that tell you what you need to do in order to change your events or your practices. Last couple of things I want to touch on is just our DEI committee. The stuff on the left-hand side is really kind of a timeline of the things that we did last year, but then the stuff on the right-hand side is more of our action items and things that came out of the work that this group did. One of the things that I'm going to highlight is the Gender Equity Toolkit, and then the projects that are upcoming this year. And so we're going to be doing an equity audit. And then the idea of that is going to be that we're going to have a hiring database that gets created out of this. And what the goal of this is to do is to give schools and school districts a resource to tap into in order to increase their hiring nets to include minority candidates. So it'll include coaches, it'll include athletic directors, it includes coaches that would like to be athletic directors, just to help broaden the search for schools and school districts. So that'll be coming as we continue to work through all of these projects this upcoming school year. As I said, we have the Gender Diverse Inclusivity Toolkit. It is a mouthful, but we have this available on our website. This is some work that BJ, Sam Brown, and myself worked on with our Gender Identity Committee, and there was a lot of people that had their hands in this, as well as some national folks that we were able to put this together with. Then we partnered up with all of the professional sports teams here in Seattle to do a PSA and to make this resource available. If you've not gone into this, I highly encourage you to tap into this. BJ and I received over 50 emails or phone calls over the summer after this got launched, and it's probably been more since then, of people that have just given us feedback that they're so thankful that this has come out. It has helped them understand the transgender world a little bit better. And we're all going to be at different levels of where our understanding is. And we're all going to be on different sides of the political aisle when it comes to this. But at the end of the day, we're talking about students. And we're talking about students who just want to have a place to participate. And that's the key component behind all of this, is it's just to help you as athletic directors navigate these conversations when it comes to trans male, trans female, non-binary, and every other definition in between, right? If you get hung up in it and your comfortability is low in having a conversation with a student, BJ, Sam, and myself are happy to have a conversation with you and help walk you through those situations and those conversations. So please do not hesitate to reach out, and please go check that out. That is the end of mine. So BJ, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, JK. I'm going to hand it over to Andy Knapp. He's going to provide a little sponsor information. Gives you just a half a second to stretch while he plays this for you. And then you got a couple more things to hear today, and we'll wrap it up.
At Giesa Credit Union, financial education is a cornerstone of our community outreach efforts, and we are committed to advancing financial literacy awareness and professional development in communities we serve. We strive to honor this commitment by supporting school districts, clubs, businesses, and other community organizations with innovative education opportunities, including in-person presentations, experiential learning programs, student-ran high school credit unions, and our Affinity debit card program. Giesa's financial education team has designed custom in-person courses intended to empower members of all ages to be financially savvy. These free education courses are tailored to fit the needs of your organization. Our experiential learning programs offer a unique learning experience as they mirror real-life situations, whether it's providing students a glimpse of adulthood, empowering adults to achieve the retirement of their dreams, or assisting community members in gaining a better understanding of poverty. These sessions truly leave lasting impacts on participants. We are proud to say this commitment to education reached a new milestone last year, as Giesa facilitated over 200 individual education sessions and reached over 12,000 participants. To take education to new heights, we also proudly offer a national award-winning student-ran high school credit union program. Currently located in multiple schools across Washington State, these student-ran campus branches provide real-life financial industry experience to high school students while enabling the student body to learn how to manage their money in a realistic credit union atmosphere. Designed to complement the school's curriculum, this innovative program provides valuable career readiness skills to student tellers through paid internships and sets all students up for financial success as they enter adulthood. Giesa Credit Union also offers our members a unique way to support education and positively impact school districts. It's called the Affinity Debit Card Program, and here's how it works. Members can select an exclusively designed debit card for their high school of choice at no charge. This card is linked to their checking account and can be used for daily purchases just like any other debit card. Seems like a great way to show school pride, right? Well, here's the best part. Each time these cards are swiped, they're actually earning unlimited funds for the school district represented on the card. With the help of our members, today this program has provided over $500,000 to support students across Washington state. Interested in partnering with GISA to make an even bigger impact on education? Contact GISA today to bring any of these programs to your school district or organization.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. The next session that you guys get is with myself. And so I'm going to share my screen and talk just briefly today about some eligibility items. I will apologize in advance because when we were together with fall workshops, this was a pretty interactive session. So it's a little bit harder to do that on Zoom. And so I highly recommend you engage with somebody in your league or area and kind of talk through some of the things that we covered, because that it would be the best way for you to get some of that information. But I do want to show you a few things on our website. Number one, when we talk about student eligibility, you want to know where to access the Student Eligibility Center. And it doesn't matter if you are going through your My WIAA or WIAA, the Student Eligibility Center is going to be the same either way. So I'm going to toggle over to the Student Eligibility Center. And again, it doesn't matter which way you go, but you're going to see the same platform when you get there. One of the items I want to share with you specifically today is in this academic eligibility section of our website. We added a document last year called Navigating Educational Offerings. There was a lot of kids who were going to virtual schools, online schools, alternative schools without athletics, but still wanting to go back and participate at their home school. And ADs were trying to navigate, how do we do that? Can they play? Can they not play? How does that work? So there's a document here that you could read about it. But what I want to show you today is this OSPI school directory tool. If you haven't used it yet, and you have kids that may be wanting to use alternative schools, I want to show you how this works. When you click on the OSPI school directory tool, it opens up a document that the OSPI is responsible for. It's a big spreadsheet, right? It's important when you get here, you get out of district and toggle to school, because you want to look for whatever school this family says their kid's going to participate in. Okay, so once this loads, there's a lot of schools in Washington, and they've been growing by the day. So what you do when you get here is, let's just say a student says to you, hey, coach, we want to go to the Washington Virtual Academy in South Kitsap. So if we access that program, can we still go do sports at your school? So what you do is you use that handy dandy Control F, and this little search bar comes in, and you type in Washington Virtual Academy, and then you'll see there's 3 schools with that name, and then you can toggle through. And you can see on my screen, there's 3 called Washington Virtual Academy all through the OMAC school district. So this clearly is not what that family was asking about. So what I would typically do is just search for South Kitsap, because the family also said South Kitsap. So when you punch in South Kitsap, you'll see South Kitsap has 20 schools in the directory of OSPI. And by using this toggle, I can go through each one of them and search for something called South Kitsap Virtual Academy. Wouldn't you know, it's the 20th one on the list. So as I scan through, I landed on Washington Connections Academy. So the mom didn't quite have the right name. She called it Washington Virtual Academy. And I use this example because this is fairly common. Parents don't always know exactly the name of the school. They don't know if it's a homeschool or a private school or an alternative school. So your job is to look in here and find out if that school really exists. So you can see with my example, South Kitsap School District has a school called the Washington Connections Academy, and here's their school code, 5562. I'm gonna make it bigger. What that tells you is that they are a public school. This is a public school list, not private, and they have their own school code. So they're gonna have their own transcript, and their transcript is going to read Washington Connections Academy. I'm going to save you the effort, but tell you they do not offer athletics at the Washington Connections Academy. So those kids can return to their public school residence to do athletics. Remember, it's public school residence, not their public school of choice. They're public school residents and they could do athletics. Okay, keep in mind, we have many times where parents will come in and say, hey, we're going to go to the Granger Providence Co-op, and that's an alternative school. So you look it up in here and it doesn't exist. What that tells you is it's either a homeschool program or it could be part of Granger High School, and the transcript is going to read Granger High School. So you got to do your homework. But if it's in here, that would tell you that this is an OSPI approved school with its own school code and its own transcript. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them, but that is usually pretty self-explanatory and easy. Okay. Or if anybody sees a question in the chat and they want to interrupt me, it's hard to do it when you're sharing screen. Okay. So the other thing I want to show you on our website is just to kind of help you with eligibility. Down here at the bottom, we have a few documents. One of them is this certificate of eligibility. You don't have to use this, but this is an example that I want to show you that as an AD, every athlete, every season, you have to check that all categories of eligibility are being met. Every kid, every season. So this is an example. You should be checking every kid every season, their age, make sure they're a member of your school, they meet the scholastic guidelines, they have a previous semester, they have a current semester, they have a physical, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes because so many of you are using Family ID or Final Forms or what have you, that sometimes people think just because a kid filled that out, that eligibility has been met. I just want to be really clear that it hasn't been met. You need to make sure you create some sort of spreadsheet that covers all the WIAA rules, and then any rules you might have. You can see this one has drugs, alcohol, tobacco, because you probably want to check for discipline or athletic code violations or whatever you might have. So it's really important, every season, every kid, every category. And then of course, you know, every 3 to 6 weeks after that, you do have to monitor academics. So every 3 to 6 weeks, okay? So I want to make sure I showed you that as well. Reminder that if you have any new students that are not accessing the window of transfer, so those are going to be 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, or 9th graders that have already enrolled in a different school and now they're transferring to yours, make sure you do the full new student packet. And you have here step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4 for every new student, grades 10 through 12. Okay. And that's where I'm going to spend the majority of my time. Reminder that all high school ADs are required to take the AD eligibility rules clinic before September 11th. You find that on my WIAA under clinics. So make sure that you're doing that. If you are a high school athletic director, if you're middle school, you're welcome to do it as well. It's just not required. So that is what I'm going to show you today on eligibility. We did spend the rest of our time talking about how to calculate running start grades, how to calculate alternative ed grades, and a handful of other scenarios. So if you're a fairly new AD or you're having some troubles understanding how to navigate the running starts contracts, feel free to reach out to me individually or Justin or Sam, and we are happy to help you with that. At this point, where do I find the exchange student form? Since I'm here, I'm going to show you. In the eligibility resources tab, you will find at the top. So here's your exchange student forms are right here. You can also find the eligibility checklist. When we get into the middle, before you enroll and before you withdraw, are very common forms that you should be using with kids before they enroll or withdraw from your school. Here's the contracts that you need for all your alternative eds, running start contracts, home-based, and some additional forms you'll need down in here. So thanks for asking the question. I'm glad I was still logged on so I could show you that. At this time, I'm going to hand it to Mick. He's going to do his presentation, and then we're going to wrap it up from there. Thanks, y'all.
Great. Thanks, BJ. Hey, a couple things. One, for those of you that tuned out on the GISA one, things that you might want to make sure you know. First of all, they came on as our title sponsor when we lost our title sponsor. So they're a huge asset to all of our schools. But more importantly, they're really focused on education opportunities. So if in your area you are hearing, people say, well, geez, we teach, how to read cosines and trig, but we don't teach people how to do basic money management and planning. They'll bring that program to you, whether it's an assembly, a day long, all kinds of experimental things. The other piece is that will pique AD's interest is that affinity card program they talked about. So just this year, we were over on the east side. So they started in Tri-Cities and they've expanded now on the west side. And there was 2 schools. So I asked them, hey, how much did you get back on the affinity program? The first school told me it was like $21,000, I believe. The second school said $57,000. So if you're still not listening to us, we can't help you. But if you missed it on the first time, we can tell you that affinity program is absolutely amazing. So those of you struggling with 1660, there is an opportunity for you. It's a very simple program. And what's really cool is that they'll come in and sit down with you and give you a guaranteed minimum the first year just to help you get started with it. And then if your school community rallies around it, you can make what we learned, and it's Richland High School. If you want to check with Mike, you got to check for $57,000. Lauren up in Moses Lake can be your other one to check on. So it's a pretty phenomenal program for schools. It's an extra asset that they bring to the table. Their focus really is on education, and that's one of the ways they support it. So with that, we're going to jump into the rest of this. COVID stuff. So hopefully you've seen the document that's linked on our guidelines. We're going to continue to add FAQs. The officials, there's a question on, what do they have to do with masking? It's stated on there, but with the new proclamation that came out since, OSPI has been taxed with that. So we're communicating with Superintendent Reichdahl on a daily basis to see what that language is going to be, and we hope to have it soon. Also with that, best way to get in contact would be at this point on that presentation. I believe Brandon had his email, and BJ, will that be listed? Casey, Andy, Jorge, can somebody help? How do we get them in contact with Brandon on that affinity card?
I'll drop it in the chat in a minute here, Mick.
All right, thank you. So the other piece with this is, please understand, I got a news feed today that where there was a board meeting in Marysville where they literally had to rush the board out because they had people there on their opinion of masking that charged the front table where the police had to physically inject themselves between the board and the people. So we understand these are very emotional issues, and you're on the front line dealing with that. These guidelines were written in partnership with both your risk management companies, with the Department of Health and the governor's office, as well as Joelani with Wasa. And they're written to serve our entire membership. We understand there are some districts right now that if they could be in full remote learning, would go full remote learning. On the other end, we have districts that don't even acknowledge that COVID existed. No different than what we're seeing play across our state and our country. These rules are written to what the governor's office and DOH have said. You have to meet these standards to play, right? So schools have the ability to be more restrictive if they want. That being said, our question that the answer we're gonna give our board members on contests not played. Our recommendation at this point from Renton is that we would say that they're all no contests for a couple of reasons. One is if you simply don't have kids to play and you're in quarantine because of the Department of Health, you can't play. But the one that we know we're going to deal with at some point, right? Justin talked about we're self-governing. Our whole system is based on your integrity as athletic administrators, right? But we also know that we have coaches and you can't be everywhere and you can't know everything immediately and you have to move quick. So one of the situations that we could foresee coming is if, my school is supposed to be going playing Justin's school, and Justin says, hey, we're not coming because Mick's not doing a good job managing his gym, and there's a lot of people without masks, and we're not taking our girls into that environment. Well, we can't force a school to go someplace that's deemed unsafe. On the flip side, I say, this is not true. Justin's game in the system, his setter's out. We're playing for first place, and the whoever wins this match gets a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Well, there's no way we can manage that on a day-to-day basis statewide from Renton. So what we will do is we're going to call it a no contest. Schools and leagues, in your leagues, you can determine how you handle it. We heard yesterday that there's one league, they're going to call everyone a forfeit, put it in as a forfeit, 1-0. hey, that's going to impact RPI. Those other ones will do no contest. Shouldn't impact RPI. Either way, we will resolve it at the state level, right? Because when the seating committees that Cindy talked about, the RPI is not the end all be all, and it's a tool for that seating committee. So what we're making sure, reiterate what Cindy said, get all your spots filled, get people on there who are educated and who are going to speak up. Because once those meetings are done and they're seated, if you sent somebody who didn't, represent the way you wanted, you've missed your opportunity. So because we need to get information out and get those tournaments running. So that's what's going on with COVID. I know there's a lot of questions. We'll try to pick them off in the chat as much as we can. Justin and Andy are really running point for us for the most part on this now. So they can help you. And so guys, if you see them come up, just answer them as best you can, and then we can circle back at the end. As far as technology, an update that's going on. So, we appreciate everybody's patience learning Arbiter. We have been told that they have fully staffed their support team now, no different than Pixelot. We could go through the gory details, how everybody laid everybody off and got caught shorthanded, but we won't. We're told it's fixed. If you're not living that, we need to know. That moving forward, what we are doing is we're working really hard to build this tech ecosystem that is as agnostic as possible, but based on foundation of companies that aren't in survival mode. So Arbiter has been around for decades, right? As has Final Forms. And that's why we're working with them right now to be the front end and back end. In the interim, you have websites. We don't care what websites you use at this point. What we're trying to do is develop a long-term strategy in the short term, meet all your needs. So for example, if you want to use Arbiter Live, which is free for your scores, schedules, and standings, go for it. If you got locked into one of these contracts with VNN, so VNN's a company, we know, we all love Mark Martin, right? And we all love WPA. We also knew he was selling. And as we talked to the companies that Mark shared with us during his sales tour through these different companies, it came through loud and clear. We're going to learn a new scheduling program anyway. So we wanted one that, if once we learned it, we weren't going to have to change it every 2 or 3 years and go through what all of you experienced last year. Those trainings are still listed on our Arbiter resource page if you need more help. In addition, Andy Knapp and Casey are available, but more importantly, call Arbiter and have them work the problem. If they can't work it, we can help you. With that, you're going to see a partnership come out with VNN. Now, we get no money from Arbiter, right? It doesn't cost us anything. It's free to use. You get a free scheduling program. At the same time, they don't pay us for that access. The way we're able to do that is because we disrupted what I call a lot of side hustles on the official side of the shop in what they were doing. Some of them help people profit, $10, $20, $30,000. Some cost officials 25% of their game checks. Some redistributed money and provided outstanding training. So we're trying to find a way to fix those good side hustles that were benefiting the officials in the membership, while at the same time, the money that was going to other places is now helping cover the transaction fees. VNN, when they came in and bought Mark, we weren't fully prepared for that to happen so fast. We didn't know. So what we found out is a lot of you are locked into some long-term contracts that we need to make sure VNN works long-term. Soon after VNN bought Mark, they got taken over, merged, bought, whatever you want to say, from Our Schools Today. Ray, who owns Our Schools Today, has been around for a long time, very good businessman. He was smart. He removed some VNN leadership. He kept Mark. He gave Mark a lot of autonomy in Washington. He's resourcing it better, and we are seeing an improvement. So you're going to see an announcement coming out with a partnership with VNN. The reason we're doing that is a couple of reasons. One, we trust Mark, and now that Ray's in the picture, it helps give us a hope that the technology is going to be what we need. So for example, last year, when you were putting your scores and schedules, we're going through Arbiter, they were automatically feeding Max Preps. We were still under contract. You didn't know it. You didn't see it. It was just happening. You didn't have to do any extra work because Max Preps API worked. VNN's wasn't working. That's why you're having issues with that once we were able to train you up on how to do it. So moving forward, we anticipate the new API that VNN has to work. We've been beta testing it with our staff and them. It appears to be working. Max Preps could not or would not provide an RPI or bracket system for us. They didn't want to pay for scores and schedules, so they're no longer a partner of the WIAA. So your scores and schedules will not go to them. They have to crowdsource it. VNN stepped forward and said, we will provide these RPIs and brackets for you. So our team's been working with Mark We've beta tested the RPIs. They appear to be working. We are going to use them starting day one of contest, mostly to test them out. It means that the RPI is going to be very volatile to start. So the best thing we can tell you is if you traditionally have a volleyball program that's not very successful and you win your first match, you better screenshot that because you might be #1 in the state on that day, but it's going to change every 5 minutes if the technology works as designed. So we have RPIs in exchange for scores and schedules. VNN, really what we're giving them for what they pay around the country going rate, it's about a $25 cost to them, $25,000 cost. We're going to trade them scores and schedules because we don't want those costs just passed to our schools. Same time, we'll eventually, if this thing's working, leverage them to try to help you out with the contracts you signed regarding giving away, local advertising and the Google ads and all that. At this point, we can get you brackets for leagues and districts and the state. And what's really cool is that those are going to be available on all your district ones, and leagues will be available on our app and website. So as people want to find out what's going around the state, they can actually keep track of games and schedules. They'll click on that. They'll go to your league websites, your district websites. We don't care where their eyeballs are at. We know that if we build this thing out, we make the information accessible, we're going to have more interest in our sports, and we're going to promote our kids and programs. You're going to be able to find ways to monetize that on your websites. And we really appreciate Mark working with this. That being said, it's only a 1-year agreement because we need to make sure it's working, right? So we're in the prove it part of the operation. So we see it work, then we'll look at long-term. Along with the promotion, you're going to see an announcement with Dan Beach and Scorebook Live. Scores and schedules are very important to him and his company. What we want is promotion. So any articles that they write in Washington, they're going to come across our website. So Andy and Casey went through every single page in our website. They got rid of all the old stuff and they reorganized it. And they're going to do a demo here in a bit where all your working stuff for coaches and ADs are now on my WIAA. We want the front to be that fan interactive, think ESPN. What we need is the technology upgrade, similar to what Mark was working on with WPA and hopefully now has working for VNN, where we'll be mobile accessible. We can upload, highlight reels from Vidswap onto that thing and do a lot of really cool stuff and make it more accessible. The ultimate goal is getting more people, understanding what we do. In addition, what we've agreed to with Scorebook Live is that if you have a really cool story that's taking place on one of your teams or community, sportsmanship, or just a remarkable event, we want to know about it. And Scorebook Live has agreed that if at all possible, they will get out and cover that and highlight that. So you'll have it not only for your community, but we'll have it to promote what we do with education base. So that's also a 1-year agreement. We're also partnering with a Mascot Media. They're a sponsor of TIC. We all want to play nice in the same sandbox. So they're going to help us out with electronic formatting of quarterly updates we'll send you, as well as an annual review that Casey put out for the first time this year. And so we're going to exchange that with Bobby, take care of a Wasa sponsor. Like I said, our long-term goal is to have this vibrant website that not only, one of the things we're asking these vendors to do is provide something for our schools at low cost or no cost. We can figure out how to monetize that for the for-profits. We can figure out how to share advertising space. The ultimate goal is you get to go to one place, put your stuff in, it rolls through. You'll hear about rosters from Casey and Andy here in a minute. To get this dream off the ground and have any potential to grow legs is we're going to pull back our AD Tech Advisory Group. So you have one from each of your WI districts. They're going to get a chance to firsthand have working ADs share with these groups what working ADs need so that when they're building something, it's something that is of use and value. So we want the bells and whistles, but we first want the day-to-day tools that we need. That's websites. You'll get more, like I said, in a minute. As far as if you aren't using paperless ticketing, you're missing a huge opportunity. GoFan is ours. They're a sponsor. They've been extremely beneficial partner for multiple years. What we really like about them is that, one, if you're battling with 1660 and how you're going to get tickets to people who qualify, you can do special codes that they can get. So your people can come through your lines, whether they're on a special code or they've paid and bought it online, and there's no public shaming, there's no calling out, it's all done through. We're told, we haven't seen it, that all that data can be tracked and that some of your 1660 reporting hopefully will be readily available. So GoFan's ours. We know Hometown Ticketing is out there. We actually got them connected to WASVO and the state auditor's office. to be able to operate in Washington. They wanted to be a sponsor, made us a very nice offer. We denied it just because it didn't feel right. When we're bringing sponsors to you, whether it's GISA, Final Forms, Vidswap, GoFan, they're going to work into this thing. And but at the same time, we're not going to badmouth a company that provides a good service. We're just going to promote ours like GoFan. We will say that in this tech world, there's a lot of proprietary agreements made by these for-profit companies. We're trying to navigate those as best we can. GoFan will work seamlessly with Arbiter. You won't have to do anything. It's there. They can go online and get it. If you've chosen hometown ticketing, there will be an extra step in January. We're waiting to see what it is. We know Mark's trying to mitigate some of that with VNN. So more to come on that. But GoFan, if you're looking for ticketing, again, Andy Knapp, KCR resources that can get you connected with them and get you up and running. NFHS Network, we'll be very direct with this. This is a critical revenue stream for the WIAA. Now, we're not going to get a bonus from the board because we bring in more revenue. What revenue does is offset our costs. Perfect example, had a meeting with our insurance brokers, new insurance we need. We have a $45,000 increase in insurance. Well, that's got to be paid. So what do? We go to our board. Where do we take the money from? Do we take it out of the $10,000 grant we give Wasa for the mentoring program? Do we take it from the one we give coach associations? Do we eliminate another facility for state championships? Like, we have to find a way to generate revenue to cover inflation. We would rather not do any of those. We'd rather go to the board and have enough money to say, hey, not only can we cover inflation, but here's some other services we'd like to provide to schools, like websites, and we can cover the maintenance fees out of this revenue stream. So that's where, by earning your trust, we're going to be honest with you with what's going on and why we do these things. When we say a revenue stream, currently we get tens of thousands of dollars out of this. In the future, like within a couple of years, it could be a few hundreds of thousands. They've hit all their projections. The reason is it's a public-private partnership. The debt is almost paid off. The money that's been servicing the debt will go to profit sharing. Mike, with the staff guidance and the board's decision, got in day one, so we've maximized our profit sharing. The other piece of that is how much content we put on there. And that's why partners like Pixelot, when you were struggling getting service from Pixelot last year and had your frustration, there's nobody more frustrated than us, right? Because it's a tool that, those C-Squad and freshman games can get played and seen by around the country by family and friends, but it also helps us as an association help you. So that's why we're pushing those. We're gonna get more information on those free cameras from Pixelot to you in the near future. Last thing, WOA memberships, pay your invoices, please. So those that are still concerned about audit findings, before we brought this forward to the membership, we worked directly with Brian King, who's the executive director of WASBO, who took our proposal to the state auditor's office and they edited it for us. So it is 100% auditor approved as is. Now, we have some districts that are very old school and that, great. It's good your money people are protecting your money. We have one of those veterans that are very conservative on our staff and we love her for it, right? But also at the same time, we're going to be innovative and not find audit findings. Several of us come from schools. We understand what an audit finding does to a school district. We're not going to set you up for failure. If you're waiting on refunds, they were slow to come because we had $650,000 in outstanding invoices through the summer. Most of those are paid and Todd is waiting on schools now. In some cases, he's noticed schools twice to where to send the refund check. So we're getting that squared away. Some districts just wanted to fight it to the end. It required a call to a superintendent, required ADs. We went to the board and we said, look, in the future, if they're late, we got to fine them 10%. That's the last thing we want to do. Our goal is to never use this rule unless we absolutely have to. That being said, this fall, we understand several of you will be a little bit late because when the notifications came out, by the time you got people back in August, by the time you get board approval, PO process, we get it. When Todd and Carrie you get a notification from WOA, just let them know where you're at in the process. That'll satisfy us. What we're going to work with Todd, and he's told us he'll do this, is he's going to get these out early in September, right? So you'll have them. So start planning right now for winter. Get your board recommendation ready. Let your business office know so those things can be board approved, processed through business office, and sent out by the end of October. So your November games, right? You're ahead and prepared to do this. If you don't do that, right, then we can't help you as much. So work with us on that. The last piece I'm going to say is some of you are dealing with some outlier challenges with the officials. We're working on those. We're not going to let officials hold schools hostage for unfair requests, but at the same time, we're not going to take advantage of our officials. So we're dealing with those as they come up. And then if you are short officials, or right, if most of you have talked to your associations, we're down and we need some help. One of the creative things that Todd's working with some of his associations on is if you find some high school kids, college kids that want to officiate, they will work together to get your kids ready to officiate middle school contests. Those kids then, once they're ready, will be assigned to your middle schools first and always, right? Once, if they decide it's pretty cool getting paid in 24 hours on their phone with this new arbiter system, and they don't mind getting yelled at and get $60 and hitting their phone the next day, and they want to work more, then they will be assigned to other schools. But until you have your games covered, if you recruit them, you got them. So that's one of the ways we're trying to help mitigate this process. All right, BJ, how'd I do for time?
Hey, you did pretty good. We're gonna, we only have just a couple of things to take you home. Should be less than 15 minutes would be my hope. In fact, hopefully even a little shorter than that. We're gonna show you a quick sponsor video and we're gonna take you home. So here we go.
I would say probably another area that Final Forms has impressed me on is there's a million companies out there trying to sell you digital products. And the first thing I always do is call their support line. And if you can't get a response from their support line, because I guarantee you if you call the sales line, 15 people are answering the phone. How is the support? And I think that's what separates Final Forms is they ask you to do an email to their Final Forms support area, and it's instant. Hey, we looked at this, we fixed it, and by the way, here's a training material to head off future problems. That separates their company. And Final Forms also doesn't do what a lot of companies do as far as say, we'll train you up front, but it's $300 an hour. Final Forms says, what do you need? How do we need to support you? Let's get you onboarded. And they're there every step along the way. And what is really cool is when we make suggestions to them, they listen. Because a couple suggestions that we've made about what could you maybe think of this when you click on this button, they're going, let's see if that might benefit other schools. And we've seen a couple changes with suggestions, and that just doesn't happen. The nice thing is it's really helped in the pandemic world where people, if they don't want to have to come in person to hand in a physical form or to sign their paper, it's all digital. And they're really learning now that they can upload that physical. Because that was the one piece that everybody thinks they have to walk into the office and hand on your desk. And that's been really wonderful. It still needs to be reviewed, but it's seamless. Final Forms has actually exceeded our expectations, which are high. And I'm shocked of how good they are. And I talk to ADs all over the country, and I always mention Final Forms because it's just different.
Thanks, Andy. We're gonna take just a couple of minutes and talk you through a little bit about our membership services and some of the projects that we've been working on. So our staff took on a significant project to really dive into how we interact with our membership and how we communicate, and trying to clean up and clarify and help support you as much as we can. So this My WIAA platform is one of the things that we have begun doing, but I also want you to know this is a multi-year project. And so if you have feedback along the way, please do not hesitate to reach out and provide it. One thing that I want to show you before Andy does the rest of it is this AD WIAA calendar. When you log into your My WIAA account, which every AD, high school or middle school has, and you should be using regularly, you will land on that WIAA calendar. If you're a Google person, you can click on the bottom right-hand corner of that, and there's a little plus button. So you could subscribe to that and have it on your Google Calendar. So you don't have to go here to look. It'll just be right there. Every time we make a change, you'll have a change as well. Secondly, up on the top right-hand corner of the calendar, there's the agenda button. And if you're somebody who sort of wants to look at it sort of in a to-do list, you could click that and look at it more in sort of a to-do list of what you kind of need to be remembering to do in terms of deadlines and reminders. But the main thing I also want you to know is any deadline that you as an AD have, you will see that we list it there 3 times. We notify you, try to do that about a month in advance. And then a couple weeks out, we give you a reminder, and then we give you a deadline. So when it came to things like fall workshops, when we open those on August 12th, you should have already known notification, fall workshops open August 12th. So those of you who are wondering when they opened, you could always look at the calendar and you would have seen what day that they open. So just a reminder, you're going to see anything with a deadline, you're going to see it 3 times: notification, reminder, and deadline. I'm going to pass it to Andy to talk a little bit about my WIAA.
Thanks, BJ. Very similar to the way that BJ was just describing the membership project, we are in the early stages of a multi-year, multi-phase technology overhaul. And from the outset, the goals of this technology overhaul have been to save AD's time, save schools money, and modernize and make all of our systems sustainable. So the first step in that technology plan has been to establish a single source of truth for schedules and scores, which is why we landed on the partnership with Arbiter for all the reasons that Mick talked about. One of the great strengths of that partnership has been our ability to share those schedules with schools and leverage those schedules and scores with technology partnerships that we're starting to enter into. So Arbiter is now being used universally by member schools for schedule and score management, which is a great first step for us to get everybody on the same page. We're going to be able to reduce inconsistencies and conflicts when scheduling officials. We've already seen that last year. And now we're paying officials faster than we ever have before to address the alarming number of officials shortage that we have right now. So we know 2021 was a challenging year for our schools learning a new scheduling platform, but as Mick mentioned, they've really bolstered their service department, and they've already implemented a lot of upgrades to the Arbiter platform that's based on really valuable feedback they've received from athletic directors in our state, which is why it's so critical that we hear that feedback from you along the way. So the second goal and the second step in this technology overhaul project has been a remodel of the WIA platform. Historically, my WIA is a place that people have gone for just a few tasks. So you haven't really logged in to use it very often. You've gone there to manage your coaching standards, you've gone there to take clinics, and you've gone there to register your teams for tournaments. And on the flip side, WI.com, our WI website, has really been a catch-all for all the different audiences that we're trying to communicate with. So fans, coaches, student athletes, athletic directors, media, you name it. And so the result of that has been we have a ton of information on our website, but it's very cluttered and sometimes hard to find unless you know exactly where to look for things. So in an effort to declutter our forward-facing website, while at the same time making member school specific information more accessible, we've moved anything that is a piece of content that is specifically for athletic directors or coaches over into my WIAA. So my WIAA is now really more of a content platform and also a communication tool for us. And so we have several different ways that we try to communicate with you as member school personnel, through emails, through two-minute drill videos, through social media. And now we're really leaning on my WIA as a content and communication platform, knowing that you're going to be logging into my WIA more regularly, since a lot of the information you need to do your job is located there. So I'm going to do a quick tour and walk through, and hopefully, we've posted a video with a tour of this, and hopefully you've been using the platform over the last couple of weeks as you've started to get back in the swing of things. But I'm just going to give a quick overview. So as I mentioned, we're using my WIA as a communication tool. When you log in, this My Messages section up here is going to have really timely calls to action for you, whatever is important in the moment. We actually have the ability to customize this based on your user profile. So you as an athletic director might be seeing different messages than coaches or other profiles in our system. So please keep an eye on those anytime you log into my WIA. Secondly, news and headlines. This is actually pulling in links to emails that we send out. So sometimes we get feedback from people that they're not getting emails from us. If you're having trouble getting emails, please feel free to reach out and we can try to troubleshoot. However, please know that anytime we send out an email to athletic directors, that's getting integrated into this news and headlines section. The quick links section is some commonly used functions in my WIA, And we're actually working on making that menu item customizable. So some of you might have different priorities than others when it comes to what you're doing in MyWIA. And we'd like to make it possible for you to customize that list. So that's hopefully coming soon. And then down here in the left-hand corner, this video of Justin, our most recent 2-minute drill. That's where you can see the most recently released 2-minute drills. And then on this drop-down link, you have a link to archived videos. Heading back up to the top, I'm just going to work left to right across the menu really quick. So the WI menu is basically all things association related. So that's going to be staff information, contact information, who you should be contacting depending on what your topic of interest is, information about our board, rep assembly, and then a breakdown of districts and leagues, including district director contact information, as well as league alignments. You can also find a breakdown of the current classifications and a member school directory link where you can find contact information for your different constituents throughout the state. The My School list is where you're going to find most of the previous tools that were in MyWIA that are related to managing your school and your coaches. Probably the most important thing to highlight on this list is this update membership link on the bottom. We sent out an email about that a couple weeks ago. Essentially, that's a step-by-step tool to allow you to, in one sitting, update all your member information. We recommend that you do that seasonally and at the very least once at the beginning of the school year. Clinics is pretty self-explanatory. That's where you can go to find all your clinics and certificates. Sports and activities. The biggest thing to note here is that historically on the forward-facing website for each sport or activity, we had a home page for the sport and a tournament central page. In an effort, again, to declutter that section, we have condensed that down to just a tournament central page on the forward-facing website. And we've consolidated all of the sport-specific homepage information into this sport and activity-specific resources page. So if you go to this page, you'll see a navigation menu on the left for the different sports and activities. And within each sport or activity, there are specific links for that particular sport or activity. Okay, for state tournaments, probably the most important thing in addition to finding your bound for state regulations is this tournament information link where you'll be able to find dates and locations for each one of the tournaments, as well as tournament manager information and coaches packets. That's something that previously lived on the forward-facing website. Really, it's intended for coaches. So that's where you need to direct your coaches to find that information moving forward. Forms is very self-explanatory. BJ has already walked through the eligibility information. And then the last couple here, resources is kind of a catch-all. Probably the two most important sections in here, or three most important sections for you, are going to be the AD resource section. That's where you would have found fall workshop information, for example, and things that are specific to you as athletic directors. We saw a couple questions about where the handbook is earlier. That's where you can go to find handbook information. And then the Arbiter Resource Center is also available there. We have the most recent training session posted on demand, as well as some previous training tools and contact information if you need to get in touch with Arbiter. Lastly, I want to highlight the nominate section. Aaron Ritzesender at the beginning of this call talked about that's one of the things he does is manage our student recognition and team recognition programs. This is where you can find nomination forms for each one of those programs. We have some great recognition programs. It's a really great way for us to highlight students and teams for their accomplishments around the state. You'll get reminders from us on a regular basis about submitting nominations, but I would encourage you to just make this part of your regular routine to check that out whenever you have worthy accomplishments that are happening in your school and your community. That's all for me, BJ.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Okay, you have gotten to the end. Congratulations all. Sorry you had to sit through that. I wish you could have been with us in person, and it was a little more fun because you got a chance to visit with your AD friends along the way. So let me show you how you seal the deal on this. I logged in as one of you. So when you logged in today, you should have landed on this information page and click over to sessions and schedules. And this is what yours probably looks like right now because I am logged in as one of you. And you can see that this is currently in session. It's scheduled to end at 11:30. And when this ends at 11:30, you are going to see the survey button is going to pop up inside this box. I'm not sure if it'll be right up here at the top. It might be right here at the top, or it might be right here at the bottom. But either way, you're going to have a little green take survey button is going to pop up. But I won't do it till 11:30 because this is sort of a timestamp deal. You take the survey and hit submit and you are done. So when we're done with this, just try to do that in the next couple of days. Don't feel like you have to do it right now, but you might want to just so you can have it done. We will post the video from today right in here. So for some reason, if you want to come back and re-listen to anything, it'll be there. All of the items that we provided to you today are all here if you want to go back and download or review any of the handouts that we offered you today. Before I end this Zoom, is there any questions for the good of the order that you need one of us to answer? I see a question, how do you post games wanted? I'm only seeing what is available.
BJ, I can handle that one. So I messaged Eric. So there should be a link down below the drop-down menu on the games wanted page that says add a game wanted listing. The only reason that that wouldn't be showing up is if for whatever reason that permission wasn't granted in the MyWI profile. So Eric, if you're on here, I'm going to go take a look at that and your permissions and just make sure that's checked. So that should be showing up on that page if you're in MyWI.
Any other questions anybody on our staff could answer? You can throw it in the chat or you can unmute and ask it at this time. Going once? Going twice? You have succeeded at completing the fall workshop. We look forward to seeing you all in person. Have a great rest of the weekend. Happy Friday afternoon.